Hello, everybody. This is Jean Piero. It is Thursday, April 9th, 2020. I'm working on a project, a personal project, to write my story, to write a little book or make a video about my life. And I want to know there's a lot of things that I don't remember, there's a lot of things that I've forgotten, and I'm making this video so I can share it with some of the people I can think of. And I want you to ask me questions. I want you to ask me questions about what do you wish you could know about me? What puzzling questions do you have about me? I'm trying to understand myself. I'm trying to get to know me. I think that is my life journey and search, is to getting to know me better. So as I make this video, keep that in mind, and please, what I'm asking for is feedback and questions. And the better questions we ask, also the better results we get. So as I'm working on this project, I think the questions will help me to focus and come up with a better outcome with this project that I'm doing. So I'll tell you a little bit about me, what I can remember. I was born in Lima, Peru. I was born in September 22nd, 1976. September 22nd, 1976. And overall, I think I had a happy childhood. I didn't grow up with my father. My father left when I was a child, a baby. Probably shortly after my younger brother Bruno was born. So we're only almost 2 years apart. And yeah, I didn't grow up with my father. I grew up with my grandfather as a father figure, and also my uncle, my mother's brother. And let's see, what can I remember? When I was a little boy, I remember my family would always get together. I grew up at my grandfather's house. My grandfather and my grandmother on my mother's side. I don't ever remember. Let's see, how can I say this? I'm gonna try not to stop this video and just go on. This is just a rough draft, I guess you would call it in writing, and I'm just thinking. So I grew up in Lima, Peru. I remember my family getting together. I remember my aunt always being a very my mother's sister, my aunt Norma, always being there for me, acting as a second mother, and I embraced her as such, and I am close to her because she always played that role whenever my mom couldn't be there for me for whatever reason, mainly emotional reasons. My aunt supported her and emotionally, and supported us, and I've always been emotional, loving, tender type of a guy, though I do have my moments when I can be really mean and annoying sometimes with my words. But yeah, my aunt was my second mother. And what else can I say? My uncle was there too, but he was more in the background for the most of my childhood until I was 14. Then when he got married to his wife, my aunt Eloisa, she also played a part on my upbringing, teaching me a few things and supporting my uncle, and she was always there also if I needed her. So I had this strong support system. My mom, my grandma, my grandpa, my aunt Norma, my aunt Eloisa, and Am I forgetting anyone? Yeah, and that's it. Growing up, I remember I was a very emotional boy. I always wanted to be around the family and people. I always had a difficult time whenever we got to get together with the family, and then everybody went their separate ways. I wanted to go with them. I remember not ever. I didn't like being alone. I didn't like being left alone. I always wanted to be with someone. I like that attention. Uh, what else? Uh, I remember my aunt I had a memory where she asked me if I wanted to go someplace with her. She was going to go shopping or something, and she told me one condition: just take a shower, and then we can go out. And then I started playing with my siblings, and I didn't take a shower. And then she came later and she said, "Okay, I'm leaving." And then I said, "Oh, I haven't showered yet." And then she said, "You're not going." And I remember crying, and uh, I wanted to go, but she said, "Nope, you didn't take a shower, so you're not going." And I remember just crying, and I used to cry somewhat like this, woo, 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 and it was partially fake and partially real. I mean, the feeling was real. I really wanted to go, but I knew that after I ran out of tears, sometimes I stretched it a little more, a little longer, and I just wanted that attention. But she left and she went shopping, and I missed out on going out that day. Uh, so yeah, that's something I remember from my childhood. I remember mm, being a lot more closer to my brother Bruno, my younger brother, and I remember during the first grade, I was always a little skinny boy, very tiny, and I remember having a difficult time in the first grade, and I repeated the first grade. So there was a time when my brother Bruno and I went to the same classes and the same school, and that was kind of interesting. I mean, I was happy that I was spending the time with my younger brother, uh, but we were always different. We both have different temperaments. Uh, I remember being shy and little, and even in first grade, I think I did get bullied. There was kids who would tease me, and I was so skinny. Like, I guess people used to tell me that I had chicken legs. I mean, I still have very skinny legs today, and but I remember being called chicken legs, and I remember kids bugging me, and Bruno, that, well, because we were in the same grade, because I had to repeat the first grade. Bruno being there for me, and he would often push the kids around, and he would fight my fights. He would go out there and keep other kids from bullying me or teasing me, and that's what I remember about Bruno. He always had he was a very strong little boy, and I remember my grandfather used to call him Hombre Fierro, which translates to Iron Man, the man made out of iron. And I remember that event, that story. And yeah, he was always a little boy. He was, I believe, even shorter than me, but he was always strong, and he showed it, and he had this self-confidence about him uh, due to his personal physical strength. Uh, so that's what I remember. Him and I were very close, and we often share beds growing up. and we we like to spend time together. Um, what else do I remember about my childhood? I remember my sister Ursula. She was she was very intelligent. She still is, and she had all these different talents. She can study, and she can remember stuff. I remember her being able to write with both hands, and sometimes she would go on the. We used to have blackboards back then, and you would write with chalk, and she used to write on the board with both hands, uh, like this and like this, like forwards and backwards. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. She could write, and she had that ability to use her brain in that way. And she liked doing homework, and oftentimes I had a difficult time doing homework, and she would do my homework for me. She tells me that she loved doing homework, so she did help me a little bit. I remember she was a little bit of a tutor or mentor for me, helping me with the subjects that I struggle the most with. Um, for the most part, the most difficult subject that I struggled with was math, numbers, anything that had to do with numbers. I always struggled with, and I remember I always had I didn't have really good calligraphy. My writing was always in need of improvement, and so I grew up with these beliefs about me that I cannot write well, and I'm not good with numbers, so I'm no good. I'm not smart enough. I'm not intelligent enough. And of course, I was always comparing myself to my brother Bruno, and I think even my other siblings. I remember my brother Bruno and I in the first grade being together in an art class, and the teacher said, just be creative and draw something. And I remember thinking, I had seen on TV a cockfight, and it was just two roosters fighting, and I thought I can draw that, and I made my best attempt to draw a circle, like a plaza, like a place where they do have those cockfights, and I drew my best attempt to draw and describe a cockfight, and then Bruno was sitting next to me, and he saw it, and he drew a way better depiction of that cockfight. And eventually, the teacher came over. She looked at the drawings, and she looked at me very disappointed, with a very disappointed look in her face, and she told me that I needed to stop copying my brother, and I needed to become my own creative self. That how dare I copy my brother? And he copied me, but he did such a better job, much better job than I did. So that always stuck with me, and I also believed, I guess I'm not creative. I'm not good. So there was all these little things, these little beliefs and events in my life when I convinced myself that I was not very smart, and I grew up for years with that. And it wasn't until, I would say, until I discovered audio content, because I also have a difficult time with reading. I read very slowly, and when I read, I get sleepy, and it was very difficult for me to get through 2 pages or 3 pages in a book before I would be like falling asleep. But it wasn't until technology got better and I was able to come across audio, audio books, audio content, video content, lectures, audio. At the time, there was audio books on tape. Um, so whenever I could find an audio tape, I would listen to it, and I've been able to educate myself a lot by listening to audio content and video and lectures. But I noticed that the more content I consume, uh, the more intelligent my arguments and my discussions, my conversations got. So yeah, it's taken me a lot of years to own that I am smart. I just have a difficult time absorbing information. But once I do, I I like it because it shows in the way in the type of conversations I have with others. Okay, so what else do I remember about my childhood? Uh, I remember when it was time for my family and I to move to the U.S. I was 14 years of age, and I remember being curious about how toilets worked in an airplane. And as soon as we were allowed to unbuckle our seatbelts and walk around the plane, I went to the bathroom. And the first thing I did when I was 14, when I was on my first plane ride, I flushed the toilet. And it was exciting. It was just something new to me. And I'm a very curious person by nature. I always have these questions. I always have this desire to know a little more. If you tell me don't look there, I'm going to look there, because that's my nature. What else? I remember. I just thought of something. I remember one time. I must have been 12 or 13. We had those phones, I guess you call them rotary phones, and I didn't understand the concept that you needed a phone jack for the phone. I just figured that phones, like any other electronic appliance, that you could just plug it on the wall and it would work. And I remember taking this phone and looking at the wires, and somehow perhaps I saw my grandfather doing this before, but I knew that if you had an appliance, and I don't know what you call it, the plug, if the plug was broken, you can always just expose the wires and just plug it into the outlet, the electric outlet on the wall, and you could just plug it in there, and then you could make the appliance work. So I remember taking this rotary phone and just getting the wire and exposing the wires and putting the wires into the wall, and then the phone exploded a little bit. It's just there was a minor explosion, and the bell on the phone rang, and it was like boom, bang, and then it smelled like something was burning, plastic burning. So I remember ruining that rotary phone because I was curious. It's interesting, the more you begin to talk about things, the more little memories begin to come to mind. Anyways, so I'm gonna try to keep these videos 20 minutes, and I want you to ask me questions. What do you wish you knew, or what do you wish, what do you wish you knew about me? Or if you have any specific questions about my childhood, maybe that will trigger something in my mind, and I can come up with a memory. And that's it. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.